Good evening, I'm Farhana Sheikh. Our top story for tonight, Trump heads to UAE after securing Qatar deals worth billions. That's coming up on AWANI International. US President Donald Trump heads to the United Arab Emirates UAE after visiting Qatar on the second stop of his Middle East tour. Artificial intelligence, or AI, is likely to be the focus for the final leg of Trump's trip. Now, Reuters earlier reported that the US has reached a preliminary deal with the UAE to supply 500,000 of NVIDIA's most advanced AI chips annually starting this year. This is to help boost the UAE's data center capabilities for AI development. While in Qatar, Trump and Emir Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani secured deals totaling more than $243 billion. This includes a $96 billion agreement for Qatar Airways to purchase up to 210 American-made Boeing planes. This comes amid controversy over Trump's plan to accept a Boeing 747-8 from Qatar to use as Air Force One. Now, before leaving, Trump also signals a nuclear deal with Iran may be near. Trump's Middle East tour has brought a flurry of diplomacy with a surprise announcement that the US would lift long-standing sanctions on Syria. The trip also coincides with peace talks on Ukraine happening in Ankara, Turkey on Friday, in which Trump had indicated that he and Russian President Vladimir Putin will likely not be making an appearance. Right, US President Donald Trump's first overseas trip of his new administration has taken him to the Middle East, with Saudi Arabia emerging as the centerpiece of his diplomatic tour. But what does this signal about America's shifting strategy in a region where US influence has waned in recent years? The question now, can America effectively reassert itself in the Middle East, or has the strategic landscape permanently shifted? We speak to Associate Professor Said Han from Wayne State University.
I think there's several takeaways from President Trump's visit to the Middle East right now. As you said, this is momentous because it is his first overseas trip in his new term of office, going to the Middle East and indicating that Saudi Arabia is arguably and presumptively the most important destination. Usually when a president travels overseas, the first place that he goes gives an indication to what his agenda is, what his policy ambitions are, but then also, of course, keeping in mind that with this particular president, his own private and personal ambitions, particularly from a financial and a commercial perspective, don't ever lag far behind. And so that is something that we have to also consider. It seems as though Saudi Arabia is certainly front and foremost for the president in the region as a way to re-engage America in the region, because it has been seen that the United States has over the past several years really withdrawn from the Middle East, in part because of the failures of President George W. Bush in his ill-begotten campaign in Iraq, nation building, regime change, etc., which proved to be disastrous. There was, of course, also a chilling of relations under Obama because of Obama's ambivalence when it came to the overthrow of people like Hosni Mubarak in Egypt during the Arab Spring of 2011, as well as what seemed to be a carryover both by the first term of President Trump and even of President Biden of aversion to further military intervention within the region. Many of these factors then played to allowing other powers to enter the Middle East in an unprecedented way, particularly Russia and certainly to a large extent China. This seems to be Trump's effort to reverse that process and re-engage the United States.
Now, we are also seeing Arab states trying to find common ground on Iran. Is Donald Trump facilitating a recalibration of regional power dynamics, or is this just a momentary convergence of interests? We asked that to our expert associate Professor Said Khan.
I don't think it's a momentary convergence of interest, and I also wouldn't typecast it as being something that the United States is chiefly or primarily responsible for. We saw last year, as a matter of fact, that it was in fact China that was able to parlay a rapprochement between Riyadh and Tehran, which then created the détente that we see today. In many ways, and as has it seems to be the case with the United States of late in the Middle East, it is a day late and a dollar short, so to speak, when it comes to many of the more momentous occasions and developments in the region. And quite frankly, were it not for President Trump's financial ambitions, arguably, it's difficult to see whether or not there would be much of a change in the status quo for the United States in the region. Having said that, though, I think it is still a net positive, despite the rather troubling, perhaps, motivations for Trump principally to be involved, that there is a benefit of the United States not only engaging, but also from what President Trump's rhetoric has been, rather positive in changing the status quo, particularly when it comes to Iran.
That was Professor Said Khan from Wayne State University on Trump's visit to the Middle East. We will go for a quick break. Don't go anywhere.
Di dalam setiap berita yang dibawa, konteks amat penting. Kami sentiasa membawakan yang tergempar dan terkini. Pastikan Astro AWANI menjadi pilihan anda, tidak kira di mana sahaja anda berada.
Welcome back. US President Donald Trump says India has offered a trade deal that proposed no tariffs. India is aiming to finalize the deal within the 90-day pause on tariff hikes announced by Trump on April 9th, after which a 26% tariff awaits Indian goods.
New Delhi has yet to respond, and no further details regarding the purported deal have been made public yet. Trump made the comments while speaking about Apple's plans to make iPhones in India, objecting the idea and calling for Apple to up their production in the US instead. The US is India's largest trading partner, with bilateral trade totaling around $129 billion in 2024. Delhi has already lowered tariffs on bourbon whiskey, motorcycles, and some other US products, but the US still faces a $45 billion trade deficit with India, which Trump wants to reduce. Trump and Modi have set a target to more than double trade to $500 billion, but Delhi is unlikely to concede on politically sensitive sectors like agriculture.
Prime Minister Dato' Sri Anwar Ibrahim's visit to Russia comes amid global scrutiny over Russia's actions in Ukraine and mounting pressure for a peace deal. Following this, how is Malaysia's stance viewed internationally, and where do we stand amid these geopolitical tensions? Joining us to unpack this is Dr. Julia Rockneford, Senior Lecturer at Taylor's University. Thank you so much, Dr. Julia. Right. From a geopolitical perspective, how do you interpret the timing and significance of this trip?
The timing of the visit is quite interesting. So we had Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim visiting Russia last year for Eastern Economic Forum. And there he was received as a guest of honor. Practically the red carpet was rolled in front of him, and he sat together with Vladimir Putin in one panel. And you could see that the relationship between them is very cordial, where Vladimir Putin invited him to visit a bit later on BRICS summit, also last year. However, on that trip, on that visit, for whatever reason, Anwar Ibrahim passed. And yet somehow it remained hanging in the air, this promise of Malaysian Prime Minister visiting Russia maybe under similar circumstances. And now there is a good occasion for this visit. On the one hand, it does not appear to be that provocative because Anwar Ibrahim is not visiting Russia together with other leaders who showed up in Moscow for the 9th of May Victory Day and the parade, something that also raised criticism from various quarters, especially in the West. But then close enough to that date and yet not provocative, and also to satisfy that invitation, to finally honor that invitation to visit Russia again. And also this visit is touted as the first official visit, not considering visitation of the summit and conferences, since visit by Prime Minister Abdullah Badawi in 2007. So it's seen indeed as quite grand. And also, well, it plays well for Malaysia, which is chairing ASEAN this year. So Anwar Ibrahim gets to pose not only in his personal capacity, and maybe not as much even in his personal capacity, but as the Prime Minister of the country chairing ASEAN this year.
Right. Now, Julia, Malaysia often asserts its neutral or non-aligned stance, but in a climate where neutrality can be seen as a tacit support, is this visit risking Malaysia's credibility, particularly among its Western partners and also within ASEAN as well? What do you think?
There is always a risk of polarization, especially in this polarized atmosphere in the international politics. But first, as I already said, Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim is visiting Russia also in his capacity as the Prime Minister of the country chairing ASEAN. I would say he went a little bit more far than just demonstrating neutrality in this. You can see there is a very positive, very warm dynamics between the two leaders. That was the same during Eastern Economic Forum, and it seems to have grown since then. You can see that they are joking with each other, and it's really cordial and it's well received in the audience. But at the same time, I don't think there is an intention to antagonize anybody, and it should be seen in line with Malaysia's policy of diversification and hedging in the international environment. So it shouldn't be seen as an outright provocative step, because it's not that.
Right. I think that's all the time we have for now. Thank you so much, Julia, for your input. And it's definitely something that we are following closely as well. Now that report wraps up AWANI International for tonight. Stay tuned for reports on the rivalry strategies and the shifts behind the power affairs driving the new global order. Visit international.astroawani.com for more, and be sure to follow our social media accounts at Power Affairs. That is all for now. I'm Farhana Sheikh. Thank you and good night.